The Galactic Museum of Ancient Warfare had been having a perfectly normal day until the human janitor started laughing at their most prized exhibit. Robinson Hayes had been pushing his mop bucket through the Hall of Legendary Artifacts for exactly 3 months and 2 days, which was long enough to develop strong opinions about the galaxy's approach to historical accuracy, but not quite long enough to keep those opinions to himself. The pay was decent. The benefits included dental coverage that worked on human teeth, and most importantly, nobody bothered him while he worked. Until today. "Excuse me," came a voice that managed to sound both reverent and academically pompous at the same time. "You're disturbing the sanctity of the display." Robinson looked up from mopping around the base of the museum's crown jewel, a gleaming sword suspended in an anti-grav field, surrounded by holographic displays explaining its significance as the legendary weapon of Kethmoran the Unconquerable, forged in the fires of the First Galactic War some 12,000 years ago. The voice belonged to Dr. Veltara, the museum's head curator, whose species looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a particularly uptight librarian. She was standing there with what appeared to be a group of VIP visitors, beings from various worlds who were taking very serious notes and making very serious sounds of appreciation. "Sorry," Robinson said, not sounding particularly sorry. "Just doing my job. Don't mind me." He went back to mopping, but the chuckling started again almost immediately. It wasn't malicious laughter, more like the kind you might hear from someone watching a particularly absurd sitcom rerun. "Is there?" Dr. Veltara said with the kind of patience that suggested she was rapidly running out of it. "Something amusing about our most significant historical artifact?" Robinson paused, leaning on his mop handle. The assembled dignitaries were all staring at him now with expressions that ranged from curiosity to outright offense. He glanced up at the sword, then back at the crowd. No, he said. "It's very nice. Really impressive display work. The lighting is particularly good." "The human finds our sacred relic nice," muttered Ambassador Zixthul from the hegemony, his tentacles writhing with what Robinson had learned to recognize as barely contained irritation. "The blade of Kethmoran," Dr. Veltara continued with the tone of someone reciting from memory, "represents the pinnacle of ancient warfare technology. Forged with techniques lost to time, wielded by the greatest warrior in galactic history, it ended the First Galactic War and brought peace to over 10,000 worlds." Robinson nodded along politely. "That's a great story." "Story?" The curator's mandibles clicked in what Robinson was pretty sure was the equivalent of indignation. "This is documented historical fact. The provenance of this weapon has been verified by the most advanced archaeological techniques in the galaxy." "Oh, I'm sure it has," Robinson agreed. "Your guys are very thorough." There was something in his tone that made the entire group focus on him with laser-like intensity. Robinson realized he'd made the classic mistake of engaging with customers, or in this case, alien dignitaries who took their historical artifacts very seriously. "Human," said General Crexmore, whose species looked like they'd been designed by someone who thought regular bears weren't quite intimidating enough. "You seem to have opinions about this weapon." Robinson shrugged. "Not really opinions, more like observations." "What kind of observations?" Dr. Veltara asked, and there was something in her voice that suggested this conversation was about to go places Robinson hadn't intended. He looked around at the assembled aliens, all staring at him with the kind of intensity usually reserved for academic dissertations or war crimes tribunals. The smart thing to do would be to apologize, finish mopping, and go home to his small apartment where the most controversial thing was his collection of Earth cooking shows. Instead, Robinson said, "Well, for starters, Kethmoran the Unconquerable wasn't unconquerable. He lost the Battle of Sigma Prime pretty definitively. Also, this sword wasn't forged with ancient techniques. You can see the laser welding marks on the crossguard if you look close enough." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that usually preceded either enlightenment or violence. In academic circles, sometimes those were the same thing. "Laser welding marks," Dr. Veltara repeated slowly. "Yeah, right there on the—" Robinson stopped. Everyone was still staring at him. "Look, I'm just the janitor. What do I know?" "How?" General Crexmore asked with deadly calm. Does a human sanitation worker know about the Battle of Sigma Prime? Robinson felt the uncomfortable sensation of having said too much, while simultaneously having no idea what he'd said that was wrong. History Channel, he suggested weakly. The Battle of Sigma Prime, Ambassador Zixthul said slowly, is not commonly taught in human educational systems. It's considered too complex for most species to understand the tactical implications. Right, Robinson said. Complex, sure. Dr. Veltara was studying him now with the kind of attention usually reserved for particularly interesting specimens. Human. What is your educational background? High school diploma. Some college. Robinson was starting to get the feeling that honesty might not be his friend in this particular situation. Some college in what field? General studies, Robinson lied. It seemed safer than the truth. And yet you can identify manufacturing techniques from the post-classical period of galactic warfare? Robinson blinked. The what now? But General Crexmore was looking at the sword with new eyes, and what he was seeing was apparently making him very uncomfortable. Those are indeed laser welding marks, he said slowly. How did our authentication teams miss this? Maybe because they were looking for something that fit their preconceptions? Robinson suggested, then immediately regretted it. The group turned back to him with renewed intensity. Explain, Dr. Veltara commanded. Robinson sighed. He was definitely not getting paid enough for this. Look, I don't want to cause any trouble. Your sword is very impressive. The display is great. The little holographic battle scenes are really well done. Human. Ambassador Zixthul's tentacles were now moving in patterns that Robinson was pretty sure meant impending diplomatic incident. You have made several claims about this artifact that suggest knowledge no human should possess. You will explain yourself. Or what? Robinson asked, then immediately wished he hadn't. Or we will be forced to consider the possibility that you are not what you appear to be. Robinson looked around at the assembled aliens, all of whom were now regarding him with suspicion that bordered on hostility. He thought about his quiet life, his steady paycheck, and his carefully maintained anonymity. Then he looked at the sword again, with its obvious laser welding and completely wrong historical attribution, and felt the familiar surge of irritation that had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count. Fine, he said. You want to know how I know those are laser welding marks? The aliens leaned forward expectantly. Because I'm the one who made them. The silence that followed was so profound that Robinson could hear the museum's ventilation system cycling. Finally, Dr. Veltara found her voice. You made them? Well, not originally, Robinson clarified. I mean, I made those specific marks when I repaired the crossguard after it got damaged in the Second Galactic War. The original was much cleaner work. General Crexmore's species didn't have eyebrows. But if they did, Robinson was pretty sure they would be disappearing into his hairline right about now. The Second Galactic War ended 8,000 years ago. Has it really been that long? Robinson mused. Time flies. And that's when Ambassador Zixthul started making the kind of sounds that suggested he was either having a spiritual experience or a complete nervous breakdown. The Galactic Security Council's interrogation facility had been designed by a committee of species who each had very different ideas about what constituted intimidating architecture, and the result was a room that looked like a cross between a space cathedral and a particularly aggressive corporate boardroom. Robinson sat in the center of it all, still wearing his janitor's uniform, while representatives from 12 different worlds stared at him from behind a curved table that seemed designed to make him feel small and insignificant. It wasn't working particularly well, mostly, because he'd been in worse spots and lived to complain about them. State your full designation for the record, commanded Director Korthval, whose species apparently believed that authority was best expressed through having more teeth than strictly necessary. Robinson Hayes, Robinson said, human, age 34, employed by Galactic Maintenance Solutions as a Level 2 sanitation specialist. Age 34, repeated Ambassador Zixthul, whose tentacles had been twitching non-stop since they'd brought Robinson in. You claim to have repaired damage to a sword from the Second Galactic War, which ended 8,000 years ago, and you claim to be 34 years old. I know how it sounds, Robinson said reasonably. Do you? General Crexmore leaned forward. Because it sounds like either complete fabrication or a claim to be an 8,000-year-old human, and humans are documented as having lifespans of less than 100 years. Robinson shrugged. Documented by who? The question seemed to stop the assembled interrogators cold. By every xenobiological survey ever conducted, Dr. Veltara said slowly. Right. But have any of those surveys actually asked humans how long we live? Or did they just observe some humans for a while and extrapolate? Director Korthval's teeth clicked together in what Robinson hoped was thoughtful consideration rather than preparation for lunch. Are you suggesting that human lifespan data has been systematically falsified? I'm not suggesting anything, Robinson said. I'm just saying maybe you shouldn't assume you know everything about a species based on limited observation. But the biological impossibility, began Dr. Veltara, is based on your understanding of human biology, Robinson interrupted, which, no offense, seems to be about as accurate as your understanding of human history. The silence that followed was pregnant with possibilities, most of them involving Robinson spending the rest of his extended lifespan in a research facility. Let us assume, for the sake of argument, Director Korthval said carefully, that you are telling the truth about your age. How do you explain surviving for 8 millennia? Robinson considered this. Good diet, exercise, avoiding unnecessary stress. General Crexmore's claws scraped against the table surface. This is not a time for humor, human. Who's being funny? I've found that most problems in life come from people getting worked up over things they can't control. Stay calm, eat your vegetables, get plenty of sleep. Works pretty well. You're claiming, Ambassador Zixthul said slowly, that human longevity is simply a matter of lifestyle choices? Among other things. What other things? Robinson shifted in his chair. This was getting into territory he'd spent a long time avoiding. Look, can we maybe talk about something else? Like why you've got the wrong attribution on that sword? No, Director, Korthval said firmly. We cannot. You have made claims that fundamentally challenge our understanding of human biology and galactic history. You will provide explanations. Robinson sighed. Fine. But you're not going to like it. We don't like it already, General Crexmore pointed out. Fair enough. Robinson leaned back in his chair. The thing about humans is that we're not actually as young a species as you think we are. We just kept quiet about it. Kept quiet about what? About being involved in galactic civilization for the past 10,000 years or so. The interrogators exchanged glances that managed to convey about 17 different varieties of alarm. That's impossible, Dr. Veltara said. Human technology is clearly pre-space flight. Your planet shows no signs of advanced civilization until very recently. Earth shows no signs of advanced civilization, Robinson corrected. But who said anything about Earth? Another silence, this one with a distinctly different quality. Explain, Director Korthval commanded. Robinson rubbed his temples. Okay, but remember, you asked for this. Humans have been part of galactic civilization for about as long as anyone else. We just keep a low profile. Why? Because every time we don't, things get complicated. What kind of complicated? Robinson gestured vaguely at the interrogation chamber around them. This kind of complicated. Look, most species discover spaceflight, join the galactic community, and then spend the next few centuries trying to prove how important and advanced they are. Humans tried that approach a few times, and it always ended badly. Badly how? Wars, mostly. Turns out when you've got a species that's really, really good at fighting, other species either want to hire you or eliminate you. Neither option ends well for anyone involved. General Crexmore was taking notes now, his claws clicking rapidly across his datapad. You're claiming humans have been deliberately hiding their true capabilities? Not hiding, exactly. More like underplaying them. See, the thing about humans is that we're not actually very good at most things. We're not the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. Then what are you good at? Robinson considered how to answer this. We're really good at not dying. Explain. Other species, when they're faced with extinction-level threats, they tend to go extinct. Humans just get stubborn about it. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to survive things that should absolutely kill us. And you believe this gives humans some kind of advantage? I think it makes us really inconvenient to have as enemies, Robinson said. Which is why we prefer to be everyone's friendly, harmless, slightly backwards neighbors instead of their ancient rivals with access to weapons technology you've forgotten how to make. Dr. Veltara's mandibles were clicking rapidly now. Are you saying that humans possess advanced weapons technology? I'm saying humans possess old weapons technology. There's a difference. What difference? Robinson pointed vaguely in the direction of the museum. That sword, for example. You think it's 12,000 years old because you're dating the materials. But the materials are that old. I just reworked them 8,000 years ago when the original got damaged. The sword itself is probably closer to 20,000 years old. 20,000? Give or take a few centuries. Time gets fuzzy when you've been around long enough. General Crexmore looked up from his notes. You're claiming to be older than recorded galactic history. I'm claiming that recorded galactic history isn't as complete as you think it is. What about human civilization on Earth? The archaeological record clearly shows that some humans stayed behind when the rest of us went to the stars, Robinson finished. Earth is, well, think of it as our retirement planet. When humans get tired of galactic politics, they go back to Earth, settle down, have kids, and pretend that space travel is something that happens to other people. The interrogators stared at him. You're saying that Earth is a human vacation world? More like a nature preserve, Robinson said. We keep it primitive on purpose. It's peaceful there, quiet. Nobody tries to start wars or form alliances or ask you to solve ancient mysteries. But the humans we've encountered from Earth are exactly what they appear to be. Young, enthusiastic, technologically limited members of our species who grew up thinking they were alone in the universe. We don't tell them about galactic civilization until they're ready for it. Ready for what? Robinson smiled, and for the first time since the interrogation began, it wasn't entirely friendly. Ready to find out that their janitor used to be a general. And that's when the alarms started blaring, and the facility's automated systems began announcing that they had detected unauthorized weapons signatures in the interrogation chamber. The Galactic Security Council's automated defense systems had been designed by the same paranoid committee that had created the interrogation chamber, which explained why the room was now filled with floating sensor drones, armed security personnel, and enough flashing lights to trigger seizures in at least 3 different species. Robinson remained sitting calmly in his chair, hands folded in his lap, while 12 different scanning devices tried to figure out why their readings suggested he was carrying approximately 47 different weapons, despite very clearly not carrying anything except a standard-issue janitor's uniform and what appeared to be a mild case of amusement. This is impossible, Director Korthval was saying for the 3rd time, his excessive teeth chattering with either stress or the desire to bite something. The scans are detecting energy signatures consistent with plasma weapons, molecular disruptors, quantum destabilizers, and… He paused, squinting at his readout. What appears to be a device capable of temporal manipulation. That's probably my watch, Robinson said helpfully. It keeps track of local time across multiple dimensional phases. Really useful when you're trying to remember if you fed the cat in this timeline, or the one where the hegemony never discovered faster-than-light travel. The assembled security team exchanged glances that suggested they were rapidly running out of ways to process the information they were receiving. Your watch, Ambassador Zixthul repeated slowly, his tentacles now moving in patterns that Robinson was pretty sure indicated the onset of a nervous breakdown. Yeah, it was a retirement gift. The guys in R&D thought it would be funny to give me something that would let me experience the same day from 17 different temporal perspectives simultaneously. Robinson shrugged. turned out to be more useful than expected, actually. R&D? General Crexmore was typing so fast his claws were starting to smoke. What R&D? Human research and development. Though I suppose these days they're calling themselves something more innocuous. Maybe applied solutions for everyday problems or helpful innovations incorporated or something like that. Dr. Veltara's scanning equipment was making sounds that suggested it was having some kind of electronic crisis. The molecular signatures were detecting. Some of these weapon types haven't been seen in galactic warfare for thousands of years. Right, Robinson agreed. Most of them were banned after the Third Galactic War. The Third. There was no Third Galactic War. Exactly, Robinson said brightly. We're really good at preventing wars. Turns out, when you have weapons that can unmake entire star systems, people tend to be more interested in diplomatic solutions. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle humming of scanning equipment, trying to understand how a human janitor could be carrying weapons that theoretically didn't exist. Robinson Hayes, Director Korthval said slowly. What exactly did you do before you became a sanitation specialist? Robinson considered this question carefully. A bit of everything, really. Military consulting, diplomatic mediation, some freelance peacekeeping. Oh, and I spent about 3 centuries working in customer service, which turned out to be surprisingly good preparation for preventing galactic wars. Customer service, General Crexmore repeated. Yeah, when you've dealt with angry customers trying to return defective products, negotiating ceasefires between species who've been trying to exterminate each other for millennia is basically the same skill set. You listen to their complaints, find common ground, and help everyone walk away feeling like they got what they wanted. Ambassador. Zixthal's tentacles had gone completely still, which Robinson had learned was either a sign of deep contemplation or complete system shutdown. Are you suggesting that human diplomatic techniques are based on retail experience? Among other things. We also borrowed some techniques from kindergarten teachers, marriage counselors, and people who work at the DMV. The what? Never mind. Earth thing. The scanning equipment was now producing a sound that suggested it was either about to explode or achieve sentience. Dr. Veltara was frantically adjusting controls that didn't seem to be responding to her input. The energy readings are fluctuating, she announced. Whatever weapon systems this human is carrying, they appear to be adapting to our scans. They're not adapting, Robinson said. They're just really old. Ancient technology tends to be a bit finicky around modern scanning equipment. Define ancient, Director Korthval commanded. Well, the plasma array in my left pocket is probably around 15,000 years old, give or take. The quantum destabilizer is newer, maybe 12,000. Oh, and the temporal displacement device in my right shoe is practically modern. Only about 8,000 years old. You're carrying weapons in your shoes? Among other places. Human clothing is surprisingly versatile when you design it right. General Crexmore looked up from his frantically scrolling datapad. According to these readings, you're carrying enough firepower to level a small moon, Robinson finished helpfully. Yeah, I know. It's really more for emergencies, though. Haven't had to use most of it in centuries. Most of it? Well, I did have to disintegrate an asteroid that was heading for a populated planet about 6 months ago. But that was just a tiny molecular disruptor, barely worth mentioning. The security team was now backing away from Robinson with expressions that suggested they were beginning to understand that their prisoner might actually be more dangerous than their entire facility was equipped to handle. Why? Ambassador Zixthal asked in a voice barely above a whisper. Are you carrying all of these weapons? Robinson shrugged. Same reason humans carry spare change, breath mints, and photos of their pets. You never know when you might need them. Humans carry weapons the way other species carry personal accessories? Not all humans. Just the old ones. And only when we're working in potentially dangerous environments. Such as? Museums, mostly? You'd be surprised how often people get really upset when you point out that their priceless historical artifacts are actually reproductions, forgeries, or completely mislabeled. Dr. Veltara's scanning equipment gave up with a sound like electronic despair. I can't get clear readings on anything he's carrying. The technology is too advanced for our systems to properly analyze. Or too primitive, Robinson suggested. Sometimes they're the same thing. Director Korthval was staring at Robinson with the expression of someone who had just realized that his understanding of reality needed some fundamental adjustments. Human Robinson Hayes, if you are indeed what you claim to be, then humanity represents a significantly greater factor in galactic civilization than our records indicate. Yeah, probably. This has implications. Usually does. Military implications, political implications, economic implications. Don't forget social implications, Robinson added. Those are often the most complicated. Are there more humans like you? Robinson considered this question. Define like me. Ancient humans with access to advanced weapons technology and extensive knowledge of galactic history? Oh, sure. Lots of us. We tend to take jobs in maintenance, food service, transportation, customer support. You know, the kind of work where people don't ask too many questions about your background. The silence that followed was broken by the facility's communication system crackling to life. Director Korthval, came a voice that sounded like it was trying very hard to remain calm. We have a situation in the museum. What kind of situation? It appears that several of our historical exhibits have come to life. Robinson sighed. That would be the security protocols. Security protocols? Yeah, most of the really old weapons have built-in security features. When they detect that they're being studied without proper authorization, they activate defensive measures. What kind of defensive measures? Robinson looked around at the assembled interrogators, all of whom were staring at him with expressions ranging from terror to fascination. Well, he said, remember how I mentioned that humans are really good at not dying? And that's when the facility's main power grid shut down, and the emergency lighting revealed that Robinson Hayes was no longer sitting in his chair, and neither was anyone else in the room, because they had all been transported to what appeared to be the bridge of a spacecraft that definitely hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. The bridge of the spacecraft that had materialized around them was not, Robinson reflected, going to help his case for being just a harmless janitor. The fact that it appeared to be constructed from materials that bent light in ways that made the assembled interrogators' eyes water probably wasn't helping either. Please remain calm, Robinson said, settling into what was obviously the captain's chair despite the fact that 30 seconds ago they'd all been in an interrogation chamber. The emergency relocation protocol activated automatically when it detected hostile scanning. It's perfectly safe. Hostile scanning. Director Korthval's voice had risen about 3 octaves, which was impressive considering his species' vocal range. We were conducting a security assessment. Same thing, from the ship's perspective. Ancient AI tends to be a bit paranoid about being analyzed by unfamiliar technology. Ancient AI? Ambassador Zixthal's tentacles were now moving in patterns that Robinson was pretty sure indicated either complete system failure or the early stages of a religious experience. This ship has an AI? Had, Robinson corrected. She died about 2,000 years ago, old age mostly, but she programmed the automatic systems pretty thoroughly before she went offline. General Crexmore was looking around the bridge with the expression of someone trying to calculate the tactical implications of finding himself aboard a spacecraft that shouldn't exist. This vessel, what class is it? One of a kind, actually. Custom build. The shipyard that made her doesn't exist anymore. What happened to it? Oh, it's still there. Just moved to a different dimension. The builders got tired of people asking them to make weapons, and decided to relocate somewhere more peaceful. Dr. Veltara was studying the bridge's displays with academic fascination that was rapidly overcoming her terror. These control interfaces. I've never seen technology like this. You wouldn't have. This is pre-standardization tech, from back when every species was still figuring out their own approach to space travel. Everything's custom, nothing's compatible with anything else, and the user manuals were written by engineers who thought intuitive design was what happened to other people. Robinson gestured to a wall covered with what appeared to be crystalline formations that pulsed with soft light. Those are the navigation controls. The ship plots courses by analyzing probability matrices across 17 different dimensional layers. Very accurate. But it takes about 6 hours to calculate a jump to the nearest star system. 6 hours? General Crexmore was taking notes again, though Robinson noticed his claws were shaking. Modern navigation systems can plot galactic routes in minutes. Sure, but can they do it while accounting for temporal fluctuations, dimensional drift, and the possibility that your destination might not exist in the same configuration when you arrive? Do those things matter? They do when you're old enough to remember when the galaxy had a different number of arms. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that usually preceded either enlightenment or complete mental breakdown. Robinson Hayes, Director Corthoval said carefully. Exactly how old are you? Robinson leaned back in the captain's chair, which adjusted itself automatically to accommodate his posture. That's a complicated question. How do you measure age when you've lived through several timeline reorganizations? Estimate. Well, I was already middle-aged when this ship was built, and she's about 22,000 years old. So, older than that. Ambassador Zixthul made a sound that didn't translate into any known language, but conveyed a sense of existential crisis that transcended species barriers. But that's impossible, Dr. Veltara said weakly. The oldest known civilization in the galaxy is only 18,000 years old. Known being the operative word, Robinson agreed. There were lots of civilizations before the current batch. Most of them moved on to other things. What kind of other things? Transcendence, mostly. Becoming beings of pure energy, merging with cosmic forces. A few just got really good at hide and seek, the usual post-material evolution stuff. And humans didn't evolve beyond physical existence? Robinson shrugged. Some did. The rest of us decided we liked having bodies. Food tastes better when you have taste buds, and you can't properly appreciate a good sunset without eyes. General Crexmore looked up from his notes. So humans are… what? The galaxy's oldest continuous physical civilization? One of them. There are a few others scattered around, but we don't really stay in touch. Different approaches to longevity, you know. Some species focused on technological augmentation. Others went for genetic modification. Humans just got really good at being stubborn about staying alive. Is that why you take jobs in service industries? Ambassador Zixthul asked. To observe younger civilizations? Partly. Also because somebody has to do those jobs, and it turns out that when you've lived long enough, you develop a pretty good understanding of what people actually need as opposed to what they think they want. Director Corthoval was studying the ship's displays, which were showing what appeared to be tactical information about every vessel within a 50-light-year radius. This ship, it's not just ancient, is it? It's military. Retired military, Robinson corrected. Like me. We both put in our time fighting wars, preventing wars, and occasionally starting small ones to prevent bigger ones. These days, we prefer quiet jobs with regular hours and decent benefits. But you still carry enough weapons to destroy a moon. You still carry enough bacteria to cause a plague, Robinson pointed out. Doesn't mean you're planning to end civilization. It's just part of being what you are. The bridge's communication system chimed softly, and a pleasant, synthesized voice announced, Captain, we have incoming transmissions from approximately 400 vessels requesting immediate audience. Shall I respond? Robinson sighed. 400? That was fast. 400 vessels? General Crexmore was now writing so quickly his notes were starting to smoke. What do they want? Probably to find out why a predecessor-class ship just appeared in the middle of the most secure facility in this sector. Robinson gestured to the main display, which showed a growing fleet of spacecraft surrounding their position. Word gets around pretty quickly when you activate ancient technology. Predecessor class? That's what they call ships from before the current galactic order. Most people think they're myths. Dr. Veltara was staring at the fleet display with obvious fascination. Those ships, some of them are from species that haven't been seen in this sector for centuries. Yeah, ancient ship signatures tend to attract attention from folks who remember the old days. Probably some historians, a few treasure hunters, maybe some military types who want to know if the galaxy needs to update its threat assessment protocols. Does it? Director Corthoval asked. Robinson considered this. Well, that depends. How do you feel about the possibility that your janitors, waiters, Customer service representatives and maintenance workers might actually be retired galactic peacekeepers with access to weapons technology that could reshape the political landscape? The interrogators stared at him. Because I should probably mention that we've got a pretty active retiree network. Weekly poker games, potluck dinners, that sort of thing. About 30,000 active members across the galaxy. Last time I checked. 30,000 ancient humans with advanced weapons? 30,000 ancient humans with customer service experience, Robinson corrected. The weapons are just a side effect of our previous careers. Ambassador Zixthul's tentacles had gone completely limp. What do you want? Same thing we've always wanted. Quiet lives, steady work, and for younger species to stop trying to kill each other over things that won't matter in 1,000 years. And if we can't provide that? Robinson smiled, and for the first time since this whole situation began, it was entirely friendly. Then we'll probably have to come out of retirement and fix things. Again. The bridge's communication system chimed again. Captain, the fleet is requesting permission to dock. They're asking if this is the beginning of the return. The return? Director Korthval asked weakly. Oh, that's just what some of the older species call it when ancient civilizations stop pretending to be extinct and get back involved in galactic politics. Robinson stood up from the captain's chair. But don't worry about that. It's probably not going to happen. Probably? Well, it depends on whether you can convince your colleagues that having 30,000 ancient humans working in service positions throughout the galaxy is actually a really good thing for galactic stability. He walked over to what appeared to be a door, though it looked more like a section of wall that had decided to be helpful. I should get back to work. The museum floors don't mop themselves, and I've got a reputation for reliability to maintain. You're just leaving? General Crexmore asked. Why wouldn't I? Like I said, I'm just the janitor. Though you might want to update your historical records. That sword really isn't from the First Galactic War. And with that, Robinson Hayes stepped through the wall and vanished, leaving behind 5 very confused interrogators, 1 impossible spacecraft, and a growing fleet of vessels whose crews were all asking the same question. Had humanity finally decided to stop pretending to be harmless? The answer, as it turned out, was probably going to reshape galactic civilization, again.